Hey everybody, we're here sitting down with our coach Ryan Middleton. You all know him as Ryan Middleton. And we're excited to have him here because he's actually so fast that he rarely sits down. So this is a real treat. Anyway, he just had a great result in the Richmond Half Marathon. And some of you may know he just came back from several months of injury. So we just wanted to sit down and talk about kind of what his training looked like and and how he recovered and what the race was like. So talk to me about your injury and kind of what precipitated that and kind of what the first few weeks looked like, realizing that you were injured.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, back in really at the beginning of March, end of February, I started getting a lot of pain kind of at the base of my Achilles, and what really kind of even multiply the amount of time I was out was just, it was so difficult to diagnose. I mean, it was treated like tendonitis, or, you know, go to PT and do these exercises, you should be back in a couple weeks, and then we'd try to run and then it would continue to hurt, and it was just a kind of a vicious cycle we were finding ourselves in.
So did you kind of have to figure out what the injury was before you could figure out your plan of training, or?
Yeah, there was probably a good 3 to 4 weeks of this, of back and forth to doctors and therapists, and just trying to diagnose like what exactly we're dealing with, what's the proper treatment, you know, am I allowed to run, am I allowed to bike, what exercise, if any, am I even allowed to do.
So what did it look like to sort of figure out what that injury was and then sort of bounce back and decide what your training looked like after that?
Yeah, I mean, finally I landed with a different PT, and he was a good fit for me. And he set me down and he said, if I set you down for 4 weeks, we don't run, we don't bike, we limit the amount of strength training that we're doing, and you can get in the pool and you can, you know, pool run and swim until your heart's content. If I told you that, you know, an additional 4 weeks, so an 8-week time frame from that point, I'd have you up to 60 miles a week, would you take me up on that offer? And I said, absolutely. And so I was seeing him twice a week. I was doing exercises every day. And then we would do dry needling, and just to loosen up all those knots that had built up over time. And I guess I should have said it was determined that it was a tear in the calf, and that's what we were dealing with. And we were just taking run workouts, converting those into the water based on time, and really trying to get the heart rate up, and just day in, day out. Just me, my flotation belt, a rope around my waist, the deep end, and people laughing at me, you know, when they'd walk by, over and over and over again, until we slowly, you know, began to see the healing take place, and then eventually the therapist felt comfortable with a slow return to running.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you trained through a period of injury that long before, or is this new for you?
That's new. You know, I've had stress fractures before. I've had, you know, pulled muscles and different setbacks, but even those were, you know, 6 weeks at most, and that's stretching it. I mean, to have something that really went on for about 3 months, I've never had anything that long.
Talk to me about like what the first few workouts like back, you know, actually running felt like.
It was silly. I mean, you know, we would literally, I remember my first run was 10 minutes, and he wanted me to run 4 minutes, walk 1 minute, run 4 minutes, walk 1 minute. And, but I can remember like just being so happy that I could finally run again. And I didn't care that it was only 10 minutes, and I walked 2 of those minutes. And it, you know, really for the next 2 or 3 weeks, that's essentially what we built from. I didn't run 2 consecutive days. I still inserted plenty of walk breaks, and, you know, cars are driving by and I'm walking down the road and it's like, this is so dumb. But, you know, but at the same time, I was like, I get why we're doing it. You know, we can't go straight from all pool running to all road running without, you know, some sort of sensible progression.
Well, how was the duration from kind of like, you know, gates were open all the way for full running to Richmond, that last kind of block of training?
Yeah, so we probably had, let's see, probably do the math here, probably had about 12 weeks to really get a good block of training. But keep in mind, I hadn't raced since January, so just the little things that you forget, the pre-race nerves, you know, the nutrition piece that you have to really dial in. Going into Richmond, we had a clear plan of, okay, you know, we're keeping it in check for 10 miles and we're staying even, and I knew exactly where my heart rate had to be. And coming out of Bryan Park, it spiked probably 3 or 4 beats higher than I knew I could hold. I backed off, the heart rate came back down. we were able to get the pace back. And doing the math in my head, you know, the further we went, the more cushion I had, which is a good feeling. And over the last 10K, we were able to, or excuse me, last 5K, we were able to negative split and come in around 111. So
Yeah, there
it was
you
a
go.
good result.
Yeah. So already started talking about the race, but like from the gun to the finish line, what were your nerves like? You know, what was on your mind as you were kind of back in that?
Yeah, I mean, the gun went off, and I remember thinking, I'm like, man, this is highly competitive. I mean, you know, even the first mile, I had a lot of trouble finding clear road. I mean, you know, I almost tripped a few times, and, you know, I was like, man, that sidewalk actually looks better than the road right now. I mean, I just
From the competitors?
yeah,
or-
I mean, I was
okay.
just surrounded by people, and just so it was a little unnerving, and just making sure that I wasn't getting taken out too fast. And then about a mile in, you know, I ended up seeing a familiar face, and we talked for a little bit. Like he was shooting for under 112, and so was I. And so I told him, I was like, I'm running even 5:30s, and you know, we're not going until the end. And he said that sounds good to me. So we settled in and kind of finally found some clean road, and really took turns. I mean, he would lead for maybe a quarter mile, maybe a half mile, and then I would switch, and we would just pace each other the whole day. And the next thing you know, we hit 10K right at 5:30 even, and made it out of Bryan Park. And then from Bryan Park through the finish, we averaged like 5:25s, and closed with about a 5:14, I think was our last mile. So paces, again, I mean, I struggled holding those for 5K. So to sit here and see the whole progression of the entire year, if you had told me going into this injury that I would run a PR of this stature, I wouldn't have believed you. But it has done nothing but solidify the need for, one, cross training, and two, realizing that you can make a lot of gains in the water if you're not able to run on land. And you know, I've always known that, but to actually have to live it, it really solidified that for me.
That finish line feel any different than the other ones you've crossed?
It did. I mean, it was very poetic. I mean, just being able to finish and kind of the culmination of everything come together. And you know, I'm never one to really count my chickens before they hatch per se, but you know, so I definitely didn't settle until I crossed that line. But to sit back and look back on this year, I only raced 3 times, but to see two PRs come from after injury, when I didn't even know if I'd really return from this, to be honest. And that was special for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With 3-minute PR and, you know, 111 half marathon, it was a good day.
It was a good result for sure. Absolutely.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
There you go, folks. So benefits of cross training, train through your injury, and don't give up on it, because you hang in there and keep a clear vision, clear focus. You'll be all set. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.